I've made a new Laravel package that brings modern JavaScript developer experience to Blade. Let me show it to you. So I've built this notorious counter component example here using Bond, that's the name of the package, and this is all just JavaScript, so everything responds instantly and there are no requests being sent to the server. Now, this is not the impressive part. It uses Alpine.js, but I've made a bunch of improvements to the developer experience. So let me show you the code. This is what it looks like. And first off, this is a regular Blade component. I created this using PHP Artisan make view. Also, this is a regular Laravel project. I just installed Bond. You just add 2 lines to your app.js file and you register a Vite plugin. That's it. Inside here, as I've mentioned, we're using Alpine.js. As you can see, we have 2 buttons here, one that increments the value, which is displayed here, and another one that decrements it. Now, the main thing to notice is the script tag, and this is a big one, because this code will actually get extracted, compiled, and bundled using Vite. That means you get the same capabilities as if you're writing a separate JavaScript file, so you can import things either from a file or an NPM module. You can use modern JavaScript syntax, and you can even use TypeScript in here. It will all get compiled into regular JavaScript supported by all browsers, thanks to Vite. Now, this unlocks the full power of modern JavaScript, and you can write composable, complex JavaScript components right inside of your Blade files, just as you would with any modern JavaScript framework. Now, inside of this script tag, we have this mount function, and this is what gives the component its state. If you've ever used Alpine.data, this is basically that, except you don't need to register the component. It will automatically get mounted to the parent div or wherever you put these attributes. This makes the code a lot cleaner because you don't need to use the Alpine init even listener, you don't need to name the component, you don't need to use xdata in your template. That's all done for you automatically. Another thing you'll notice is that we get full autocomplete of properties, functions, helpers, imports, and also you get error checking. And this is super useful. I forget about this all the time. Whenever you're accessing properties inside Alpine.js functions, you always need to prefix them with this. Now, normally I would figure this out by going to the browser, realizing that something's not working, opening the console, returning back to the editor, fixing the issue, and so on. With Bond, you get instant feedback. So I hope you can see how big of an improvement this is for the developer experience already. But let's keep going. This not only works in the script tag, it also works in the template. So again, full autocomplete for properties, functions, error checking. But my favorite feature has to be the rename. If I rename this property, it will automatically get updated everywhere, in the script tag, in the template. And this is super useful. The last feature I want to show you is reactive props. Now, let's say we wanted to allow users to customize how much is the value going to go up or down with each click. And this would be based on another element that's on the website, where if the user selects 5, for example, each click would increment the value by 5. If they select 3, the counter would go 3, 6, 9, and so on. So to do this, we're going to add a prop, and you do this in Bound by adding an argument to this callback function inside mount, and you add a type annotation. And this is the only place you'll actually need to use TypeScript, even if you're not using it for your own code. And the only reason for that is that I wanted to have a terse syntax for defining props, and I believe this is the best way to do it. So I'm going to add a step property, which is going to be optional, and its type will be number. Now, in the future versions, you'll be able to omit this type, so you can only have the name of the property. For now, I'll leave it there. Now we can replace this hard-coded value for props.step, and we'll fall back to 1 if it's not defined. Now, to demonstrate this, I'm going to use a Livewire component, and that's because Bond integrates really well with Livewire. Basically, it allows you to build these front-end heavy components which can consume Livewire properties. They can even call Livewire methods, but internally, they'll still just use Alpine.js, so everything stays responsive even while we're waiting for a response from Livewire. And this allows you to build really nice optimistic UIs. So if I go to the welcome page, we have this counter here. Let me just replace that for a Livewire component I prepared named form. And if we go inside, we'll see that we have these two public properties, one for the step and one for the actual amount. I've also added this updated hook here, which will pause the execution for 1 second every time we hit Livewire. And that's to demonstrate that everything is truly happening on the front end. Basically, you can demonstrate the same thing with throttling down your network in Chrome DevTools, but it doesn't always have to be just network. You could just have a slow query or a performance bottleneck in your app, and normally with Livewire, that would slow down your UI. With this pattern, we should see that everything will stay responsive even while Livewire is working in the background. In the template, we have two counters here, one that controls the step and one that controls the amount. You can see that I've already added the wire model to them. And to make this work, I'm going to need to add one more thing to the actual counter component. So I'll add a X modelable property here and set it to value. And this is regular Alpine.js stuff. If you haven't seen this before, basically what it does is whenever there is a wire model or an X model on this component, it tells Alpine.js, keep whatever's in the wire model in sync with whatever's in the modelable. So anytime amount changes, it will change this value inside to the same thing and vice versa. Now, I've also added this step property here, and you can see that you need to prefix any of these bond properties or Alpine.js properties. You need to prefix them with X. Inside, we're using this wire object, and that's because anything inside of this property is just JavaScript. So for example, I could just write parse int 2, and this would work. So for that reason, we can't just say step, for example, because this variable doesn't exist in this context. So we have to use the wire object. Now let's go to the browser. This is what it looks like. Here, we are displaying the value that's currently on the server. This is just rendered using standard Livewire. Above, we have our two front-end components. And what you should see when I start changing this value is that it takes a second for Livewire to catch up, but even during that, our UI remains responsive. And that's exactly what we try to achieve. This is what you call an optimistic UI. But let's play with the first counter as well. And what you should see there, and I'm going to need to be really fast, is when I change the step property, it should reflect to the second counter instantly, even before the response from Livewire comes back. So let me change this to 5. Let me just do this. And now let's go 5. And now I'm adding by 5, even before the response from Livewire came back. I'm going to do it again. Did you see that? So basically what we've built is we have fully front-end focused components that integrate seamlessly with Livewire. We've built them using modern developer experience with autocomplete, error checking, and we have fully featured JavaScript environment available thanks to the Vite plugin. And I think this is pretty cool. Let me know what you think.